Hello everybody and welcome to Clash of the Correspondents. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
Game Week 5 is upon us, and in this week's episode we have all the way from California, Stephen at 6th goal, and all the way in North London, Adam at 35 who. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Probably slightly less tired than Stephen is at the moment. But,
so
good.
Yeah, Stephen, tell everybody what time it is where you are.
It's 4:34 in the morning. I'm sitting outside my my office here before I start work in 90 minutes, in the dark, pretty much like Watford.
Yeah, everything about you is always mad, Stephen. I don't know, it's always random times and randomness with everything. But we appreciate you getting up at stupid o'clock to jump on this recording because it has logistically been a little bit tricky. But we've made it happen, and the news has been kind to us by giving us tons of stuff to talk about, with Grazia's sacking and a whole new management team coming into Watford.
Yeah, next question.
Come on, Stephen. How you feeling, mate?
I guess a little depressed, a little unhappy. It's not really how we wanted to start the season, obviously. 20th, looking up at 19 other teams. You know, coming off a very successful campaign last year, getting to the finals of the FA Cup and then getting, our butts handed to us. But, I think that was to be expected. I don't think we were as good as the 4-0 start we had last year with our one big come-from-behind win against, the Spurs. We played well, but, we also played very poorly. And, you look at the managerial track record over the course of his, I think it was 66 games, and it wasn't great. They played well enough to compete. They obviously played well enough to, remain in the Premier League. So, we'll have to go on with Quique Sanchez-Flores again and, see if he's able to turn the club around. I mean, he was fairly successful his first time. I think we ended 13th, got to the semifinals of the FA Cup. So, he's got a little bit of a track record with Watford, but I'm just scared it's going to be more of the same.
Well, you've got the first two games that you're running into is a relatively in-form Arsenal, followed by an always in-form Manchester City. So obviously they're two tough games to go into, but by the same token, he may as well just have a go, right? Because no one's going to judge Flores on the results in the next two games. You're expected to lose both based on form. So in some ways, I think that's actually a blessing, because it means you can just go for it, and what's the worst that can happen?
Oh, let's see. We can give up probably 9 goals in 2 games and end up 0-6 to start the season.
Well, West Ham were not too dissimilar last year, mate. It took a long time before we picked up our first win, and you can still recover from it. It's still so early. And the table was so tight. Like, just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how 15 teams were separated by 1 point. So
yourselves last year lost the first 4. Palace the year before, was it first 7?
7.
With no goals scored.
And the ball went after
you can
4
recover.
or 5. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's not too late to recover. And, I don't think it's as dire as I make it out to be. But it's just frustrating, especially as a supporter, especially being, 5,000 miles away from, Vicarage Road, and, having to get all this stuff, basically secondhand, and, not being able to support the club by going to the games. The club's good. I think we have the personnel, so, it is still early, 4 games in. That 40 points for us is the magical number.
I think there's a country and western song there in the making. 5,000 miles from Vicarage Road. I just need to get the lyrics together for that. You've struggled to score goals in the first few games, but then you've got kind of Danny Welbeck, Ismail Sarr and stuff. Troy Deeney's unfortunate injury. There isn't a lack of firepower there. I mean, Will Hughes is a good player, Andre Gray's a good player, but not everybody's been integrated and started and playing and firing yet, really.
No, but I don't think we have a legitimate goal scorer. De La Feu at Arsenal, at Barcelona, he was never a legitimate 15 to 20 goal scorer. Deeney, I think he's hit 20 a couple of years. I think we're going to miss his leadership and inspiration and presence on the pitch more than his goal prowess.
Yeah.
Why Gracia did not play Welbeck and Ismail Sarr more than he did. I think they combined for just under 60 minutes in parts of 4 games. was a little baffling. I mean, you know, you're sitting at 0-2, now 0-3, 0-4. At what point are we going to see Welbeck, who's obviously the most experienced pure striker we have, on the pitch starting? I'm not a big Andre Gray fan. I think he should be on the bench, come on as a sub. But I'm not a big fan of him starting. I just don't think he has what it takes. And again, I mean, is he really a proven goal scorer in the Premier League? Not really. I mean, championship level, yes. But
I think
I want
Danny
to see our new
Welbeck's
guys
scoring
in
on
there.
Sunday, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's written.
Yeah. Perfect chance for
Put
Adam.
all your money on that.
Adam to jump in. So is this the year, Adam, that you're going to have the cojones to do one over on Watford, eh?
Oh, I don't. To be fair, I think we beat them. I think it was last season we won at Vicarage Road.
You beat them more than lose.
Deeney got sent off. Yeah, I think we've got a pretty decent record. It's just that sort of the
Gets
memory of that
highlighted,
Cojones
doesn't
game
it?
where Tom cleverly managed to score against us, which is an embarrassing thing to happen. But no, yeah, I was feeling really confident, and then obviously the managerial change happened, and it's not a new manager bounce. I guess it's a sort of new old manager bounce, whatever you want to call it. But you never really know how these things are going to happen, and I think I liked the way, I thought Gracia's sacking was a bit harsh, but I like the way that Quique Sanchez-Flores sort of used to set up his Watford side, and I think they'll be much more rigid defensively, I would imagine. And then I genuinely do worry about Danny Welbeck scoring against us, because I think he's probably the best of Watford's strikers, and I can sort of see him and Deulofeu having quite a nice partnership, because Welbeck always used to link up quite well with sort of similarly diminutive type players at Arsenal, so I can see that working quite well for him at Watford.
Stephen, before we kind of move on to detail in Arsenal, a simple question, I think I know the answer. Is there any Watford assets here with the manager bounce that we can recommend to people here?
I don't see any. Honestly, I'll take that back. I'm looking at Craig Cathcart, but just because for FPL I need that 0.1 and he's 4.4. So, I mean, I could conceivably drop down to take a Cathcart, knowing damn well that maybe 2 points a game, if that. But right now, no, there's no assets. I mean, yeah, you can watch Gerard Deulofeu and, you know, maybe Roberto Pereira, but beyond those two, you know, I'm not going to put much hope into any FPL assets coming out of Watford this year.
When you write your articles for the website and we get to the end and it's always summary, FPL summary, Watford FPL summary, it's like no one. I always feel I feel the pain in that. Like sometimes you read people's articles and I can actually picture in my mind you type in that, and I feel a bit of that pain every time you just says there's no one at Watford worth considering.
Well, even last year, going back to last year, there was a lot of times where, you know, I had put 3 or 4 guys on a watch list, but individually they aren't that strong, but together last year as a team they were pretty solid. I mean, they were competitive in most all games, even the losses, minus the FA Cup final. They would usually play well. I mean, sure, we had some losses that were poor losses, but for the most part, there was a very positive atmosphere, you know, around most games and how they played as a team, which to me is more important than how they play individually as FPL players. So, you know, it is a bit frustrating to get to the end of an article and, okay, what are our FPL assets this week? Well, hey, it's none again. Let's move on to the next article. But I think it's going to be like that for a while. I mean, you know, they're not scoring goals. They have 2. They've conceded 6. So I see no assets. I mean, yeah, you can put Deulofeu on a watch list, maybe Welbeck and Pereira for the attack, and defense, Foster, maybe. I know a lot of people could turn to Holebas because I know Holebas and Sanchez-Flores, you know, had a pretty good relationship. But at 35, I mean, yeah, I think there's just better assets out there to put your money on.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a caveat. Yeah, Stephen's right. There's nobody that we're going to go and buy at the moment. But if we think back to Flores' 16-17 season, we may see a change of system here to 3 at the back.
Yeah.
So I would keep an eye on the full backs and if they're potentially going to be playing as wing backs in the next few weeks. You're not going to go into sort of after the Wolves game in game week 7, but keep an eye on that. And I think the forwards to keep in mind, if you remember that great Igalo and Deeney relationship from 16-17. So it might be that Welbeck and Deulofeu, for example, strike up, that sort of thing. And I think we all want to see Ismail Sarr play and see what this guy's all about.
For sure. I mean, £30 million for that guy is not a small amount of money, so we should expect reasonably good things from him. But it's interesting. Adam, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is Suj's blind optimism, thinking West Ham are going to win every game 3-0, and 0 is Arsenal fan TV after you've lost and everybody needs to get fired and Kroenke out. What Adam do we have at the moment?
Well, it's funny because I re-watched and tweeted out the pre-season video or episode we did. God, I was so depressed.
Yeah, that was a 2 or 3.
Really
that was a 2 or 3 on the scale. And I'll be honest with you, I've been reasonably impressed with Arsenal this season. I feel like you've made progress. So that's why I'm kind of asking the question, are you on the positive end of the scale now?
Yeah, I think there are definite signs of improvement. I think I'm definitely not at 10 West Ham are going to win every week levels, but I think I'm probably more pushing towards a 7 or an 8. And I mean, a win in the North London derby obviously would have made me feel a lot better, but the fact that I felt we were probably the better team and it's individual errors that cost us, but these individual errors keep happening, which is the issue, I suppose. But yeah, no, the attack is so exciting to watch, even if it's not necessarily clicking on full strength just yet. But it's been so long since I felt like we had a winger like Pepe who at any moment can just produce something out of nothing. He's got all the tricks and flicks you can want, and I mean, you saw that on his brief cameo against Burnley when he did the nutmeg on Ben Mee. I've got that GIF saved somewhere on my phone and just watch it every now and then. It's really exciting to see, in comparison to last season, where at times we looked so pedestrian. I felt like
he likes to have a shot as well. Pepe, he loves to have a pop at goal. Nothing has gone in yet, but he does like to take a shot, and I suppose you've got to be in it to win it. So if you're not shooting, you're never going to score, right?
Yeah, I think he's got an average of 4.5 shots a game,
which is a lot for a midfielder.
Yeah, and
chance created
and
as well.
The more
second to De Bruyne, I think.
He comes. Sorry,
I was going to say I think he's second for big chances created behind De Bruyne. I think, which is staggering on the minutes played
but
so far.
I think it's also like we have to remember he came off the international duty over the summer, so that's why he didn't start straight away. So he's still getting
up to speed
to Arsenal's sort of up to speed essentially, and acclimatising to the league and the style of play. And yeah, I think the more he builds a relationship with the fullbacks, with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because that's what was apparently one of the things he was sort of looking at when he was choosing which club he wanted to go to over the summer, was he wanted to be able to play in a system where he could connect with a fullback. And Ainsley Maitland-Niles is more of a midfielder than a defender, so he likes to bomb on up the right, and so the way those two link up will be really important for us over this sort of pretty decent run of fixtures we've got.
I always wondered why he didn't join Liverpool. Now I know.
But I think, because Trent's useless, isn't he? Really.
On Liverpool, it's kind of the main thing that I wanted to ask you above everything else, Adam, is do you think that Emery is trying to evolve a style that is very similar to Liverpool's? I'm thinking about once obviously Bellerin and Kieran Tierney get fit, they'll presumably be first choice eventually at fullbacks. And I'm thinking particularly in surrounding obviously Pepe and Aubameyang's positions, and also little things I noticed about Lacazette in the North London derby in terms of how he was dropping into sort of Firmino-esque positions at times. I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I think you're right, and it's something that we essentially relied upon last season. It was the only reason Kolasinac became an even semi-viable fantasy asset, was because our game plan was utilising overlapping fullbacks with wingers who cut inside. And if you consider last year, that main outlet was that left flank of ours, so Kolasinac and Iwobi. So yeah, it's definitely something we're looking to recreate and have the wingers cut inside to create that space for the overlapping fullbacks like Liverpool do. But I think the difference is that Emery's not so wedded to that system that he won't change it up, like we saw in this season's Liverpool game, where he essentially seeded the flanks in order to flood the midfield. So even though I think that will be our main style of play, I don't think it's sort of set in stone as much, because he's like the arch pragmatist. He'll study the opposition a lot and try and work out how to sort of best exploit what he sees as their weaknesses. And apparently that meant allowing the two best fullbacks in the world the freedom of the pitch at Anfield. That's by the by.
Well, I wanted to just touch on Pepe just before we move on from him. I feel like he's going to be one of those, let's call it Pringles. Once he pops, he can't stop. Once he gets his first kind of returns, there's going to be a string of them. It's one of those FPL kind of conundrums of when's the right time to jump on him, and there's going to be a few players that get him in just before that run, and then there's going to be the majority of us who get on it just a little bit too late. Are you going to be an early adopter? Are you going to be one of the early ones that jumps on him, or are you kind of holding out?
Well, it's tough because at the moment I'm on my wild card, and that's one of the sort of conundrums that I'm dealing with, is whether to go with Pepe or Son in the midfield. And
no bias here, mate.
Sorry?
No bias here, mate. Go on.
Well, no, exactly, and that's the thing. It's like you're trying to weigh the heart and the head part of it, and Son being that 0.1 more expensive means that if Pepe does start to look good, you can always drop down. But yeah, I think if there's ever a time you're gonna punt on Pepe, and he's just he did go away with the Ivory Coast, but then he came back to do fitness work, so he's ready to go after the international break with Arsenal. So it feels like if there's ever a time you're going to punt on him, now is when to do it. The
fixtures just look so tasty as well coming up for you guys. Exactly. It feels like, you know what, that's what we do throughout the FPL season, right? Try and find the gems before they go on crazy runs, and all the stats point to Pepe getting big returns over the few weeks. It's just who's got back to the cojones to do it early. We'll see. Stephen,
I don't think Europa League is a worry for him at all. I think especially in the group stages he'll be sat on the bench rested.
I agree.
I agree.
Stephen, tell us about your FPL season so far. We just heard that Adam's on his wild card. We'll come back to that in a second, Adam. But how's it been for you so far? Are you happy, unhappy?
It's paralleling last year, oddly enough. 2 weeks in, I activated the wild card ahead of game week 3. I did the same thing last year. Excuse me. It's worked out. I'm happy with the team. The overall rank's pretty bad at 935k, 232 points. So I'm just a point and a half off my goal of 60 points per game or game week.
Yep.
Which I think for me is more important than saying yes, I want to get in the top 10,000 or the top 5,000. You do 60, 61 points a week, everything else is going to take care of itself. So that's my goal, is to shoot for 60 a week, minus the captains and, what we get with the wild card. But, my main reason for playing the wild card ahead of game week 3, I had no Raheem Sterling. I toyed with the idea ahead of the season, didn't bring him in, and it sort of was the one player I wanted to get in with De Bruyne and Salah and Kane. So I've got those 4 premiums.
Oof. That's heavy hitting on 4 players there.
Yeah, it is. And, it was looking good with Kane after week 1, but it's been a little quiet here the last 3 weeks.
Your points total and rank is slap bang in the middle of me and James, and I can think of no better place than to be sandwiched between me and James.
It's interesting. Stephen said he's obviously got points targeting, which I think is quite a nice strategy, actually.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to my Adam will relate to this, but I'm always targeting for Spurs 2 points per game. Like the rest will take care of itself in terms of trying to finish top 4. So Stephen's right. If you're hitting 60 plus, it will kind of take care of itself. Don't worry too much about what
rank
others
for
are doing now. But he did say he's not too happy with his rank. He's fucking better than mine, mate. And I'm not sitting. I'm not sitting here. I'm not sitting here too bothered at the moment. It's very early. Very early.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, in the big picture with I think 10 points away, I'm in the top, 500K. So it's not like I'm well back of the pack. I'm close. 2 bad weeks, one with 38 last week, or a week 4 headed into the break, and I think it was a 38-point week, so that didn't help my cause. But I like my team. Defensively, I've gotten rid of all my premiums and piled all that money forward for the attack, which is something I usually don't do. But I was not going to sit here when clean sheets are down this year. I think we've had 16 or 17 through 40 games.
It is really low so far.
That number was, I think, down by 8, 9, 10 from last year. So, you know what? Until we start seeing some consistency from the teams we expect, the Man Cities, the Liverpools, well, that's about it. I'm not going to buy back into defense. I'm going to shove it all into the midfield, play 5 across the midfield, and, maybe toy with the idea of a 3-4-3 with, Barnes and Allaire, Pookie, if I don't want to stick with Kane this week. Maybe even take one of Adam's guys and go with Aubameyang for a couple of weeks as Arsenal's coming into a good run of fixtures.
It's interesting how your strategy is so different, because I've still got 3 Liverpool defence, 2 City and the goalkeeper and defender, and I'm going to play Lundstrom this week as well. So I'm playing 5 defenders and the goalkeeper and piling all in.
Well,
and yours is very different.
It is interesting because I created a second team with my original plan, which was 3 City midfielders, 3 Liverpool defenders, and that team is 280 some odd points. I'm in the top like 50,000.
Wow!
If I would have just stuck with my original plan, but I didn't because I didn't have the cojones to do it. So, my team, as I play it week in and week out and put all that time and thought into it, well, it's not doing as well as this team that I spend 5 minutes on. Okay, who am I swapping out? There we go.
Wow.
But isn't that how it usually is? I mean,
always the way. But both James and I's our joint zombie team is smashing both of our teams. It's about 300k overall, 250 points or 245 points or something. So yeah, it's doing particularly well. Adam, you're on your wild card.
Yes.
And I don't see any grey hairs or anything at the moment. Well,
it's weird. I've sort of...
You might see a beard soon. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, God, yeah. That's going to be a nightmare.
Do you want to share about that, Adam, just briefly, for those who are not aware?
Yeah, okay. So basically, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I'm not exactly keen on Ceballos as a fantasy asset. And it sort of got a little bit out of control. There was a big thread of tweets involving FPL family, and I'm not sure if you guys were tagged in it as well or not. But basically, I said if Ceballos outscores Iwobi over the next 2 game weeks, I won't shave for the rest of the year. So, and
for game week 5 and game week 6.
Yeah, game week 5 and game week 6, and I haven't shaved since I sent that tweet.
The only problem with Adam is I re't won't shave for 4 months. He looked the fucking same.
Still look the same. Yeah, that's the advantage of being 12 years old.
Really...
the youth of today.
Yeah, facial hair in air quotes.
Interesting. I think Ceballos could be fire this season. I was so disappointed that he wasn't on the starting 11 for the North London derby. I didn't think you needed 3 holding defensive-minded midfielders in Xhaka and Torreira and Guendouzi. You could have sacrificed Xhaka for Ceballos, and he was so good when he came on. But I suppose you're not judging him on
I agree with
ability. It's FPL returns.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also Torreira and Guendouzi aren't traditional defensive midfielders, even though they can be quite sort of dogged in the tackle, like we saw with Guendouzi's assist. He can pick out a pass, and Torreira played sort of a similar role in the North London derby last season, where he was a little bit more box to box. But I mean, I love Ceballos as a player, but I think the rotation in that midfield is such that it's too much for me, certainly.
Is Granit Xhaka a holding midfield player?
Is Granit Xhaka a midfield player? Is he a player?
Yeah. This is now getting a little bit philosophical. If Granit Xhaka were
you even said it yourself.
Who would he be?
What was the analogy you used, Adam, in your Adam and Audio pod before the derby? You said something brilliant about Xhaka. I can't remember what it was.
I don't know. I may well have done. A human
there you go.
Fart. I think I've called him that before.
But we'll use that opportunity for a shameless plug, right?
I remember. Sorry, he's a he's a analog player
in a digital age.
That's
yeah,
it, yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Whilst James touches on that, why don't we give both of the guys an opportunity for shameless plugs? So you've got a podcast, Adam in Audio, which I listen to on Spotify. Tell everybody about that, and then Stephen, you can tell us about beer.
Yes, or I guess calling it a podcast is a little bit of a denigration to what you guys and Stephen do, but it's basically just me sort of sat at a desk every now and then with a microphone talking about football.
Same shit.
Yeah, I suppose so. Talking about sort of football, fantasy football, and going off on random tangents with weird analogies. Yeah.
I feel like when I've listened to your episodes, it really is it's very thoughtful. So I really feel like I'm inside your head, and the thoughts are formulating as you're thinking about things. But yeah, it comes across as very, I suppose, I don't know, it sounds stupid, but very thoughtful. You're really thinking about the things that you're talking about. It really is like inside your head.
He's like, no, it ain't.
No.
I was going to say, it's very thoughtful. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's like me and James talk about what's happened on the pitch or what's happened from FPL points. That's all quite fact-based, external stuff. When I listen to you, it's like I'm sitting inside your head and the thoughts are kind of formulating in your mind.
No, yeah, I suppose I do like sort of go into, and because obviously I'm an Arsenal fan, I do sort of go into deeper strands about Arsenal and sort of go into depth on sort of certain things that other people might not notice or might not get covered as much just because people don't have the time and don't really care enough, and I'm sad enough to notice these kind of things, I guess.
Stephen, what about you?
Season 2 of the Pitch and Pint podcast. Yep, it's beer and FPL, but I think usually I focus on the FPL aspect just a bit more. But it's been fun. It's just something I wanted to get back into after being away from, I think we used to call it shoutcasting back in my day, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But it's been fun getting back in and producing and writing and editing and doing everything that it takes to, as you guys know, bring something to the community. And, that's all I wanted to do was just add my opinion in audio form. So, people, if they wanted to, listen to it and get some insights on craft beer and fantasy football, by all means, take a listen.
For sure.
And what about the roundtable, Stephen?
Oh, yeah, the FPL roundtable, that's something that FPL Shark, FPL Tornado, and FPL Lens and I started last year. We've got 2 or 3 episodes last year. It's been tough this year trying to get 4 guys together at one time.
Just do it at 4:30 in the morning, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really. Thursdays are tough because that seems to be the days that we can get together, but that, usually leaves less than a day, to get it released and, get some content to the community. But it's I think it's much more enjoyable for me, banging ideas off 3 other guys and sitting there and just droning on for 30 minutes, not having a back and forth, with somebody else, with a co-host like you guys do or some of these other pods. So it is a little bit challenging, but the FPL Roundtable, it's good fun. Some great guys with some great takes. So, we're hopefully going to get something out tomorrow, again Thursday, but, we're having fun. That's all that matters.
Fantastic.
I might steal that as a tagline for my podcast, droning on for 30-odd minutes.
There you go.
You normally go for an hour, mate.
I was going to say that's true.
So, guys, thanks for joining us. Let's wrap up with predictions. Stephen, what are your thoughts on the score for this weekend?
3-0 Arsenal.
Oh.
Whoa.
I'm sending you a virtual hug, Stephen, if I can. Adam, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you, Stephen, you're already wrong because you're predicting we're going to keep a clean sheet, which will not happen. Danny Welbeck will score, probably. I would say 3-1, though. Yeah, 3-1 to Arsenal.
I would even gone a little further, or maybe even a 4-1, but it's going to be... Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Arsenal will keep a clean sheet. I think you'll comfortably score 3 goals at least. Probably more.
And just to let you lads know that this podcast will be titled The Cojones Derby.
The Cojones Show. Yeah, there we go. So guys, thanks for joining us. I know anybody tweet Stephen and say well done for getting up at a stupid o'clock to join us. It is really appreciated that you've done that. And obviously, Adam, you're just the same time zone as us. you're probably somewhere where I could throw a cricket ball and hit your house. That's probably where you are, somewhere in North London. But thank you for joining us as well on this episode of Clash of the Correspondents.
Perfect. Guys, you can find Stephen at 6th Goal and you can find Adam at 35who. Do give the lads a follow. They're both brilliant members of this community.
Indeed. Other than that, we'll be back tomorrow with the final plan Friday, just before 24 hours before deadline, where James and I will be running down our final transfers, if we make any, going into game week 5, plus who we're picking for captains. Have a look at the differential team, North v South. You hit the wild card on your South team, right? Or you were going to?
I might though. I mean, Pepe's definitely getting fired into it, I can tell you.
Yeah, so we'll run down everything you need to know 24 hours before the deadline. If you're a Sky Fantasy Football player, go back and look at the history. Yesterday we put out a podcast detailing all the final bits and pieces to do with the overhaul, for which you will have about 2 days now at the time
of the Sky game.
Yeah, it's a Saturday morning Sky deadline of 12:30 to use your overhaul. So if you are a Sky player, then also look back and listen to that as well. Other than that, enjoy your game week, and ciao for now.
Thanks, gents. Cue music, man, child.
Fantasy Football Show.